Hey, and welcome back to the Caffeine Podcast. I'm David Cherry. I'm a coach to founders and entrepreneurs. And today I want to talk about why competition doesn't exist. Now, the modern struggle for most people is that we're constantly being exposed to people who are farther ahead than we are. When we're on social media, it's really easy to be doing a scroll and see everybody talking about how much money they're making, everybody talking about how they're an overnight success, everybody talking about how many followers they're building or how big their newsletter is. And so while we are in this era where we have amazing opportunities, each and every one of us, because of the tools available to us, because of the learning opportunities we have, the ability to connect with anybody around the globe, we have an amazing set of ideas and opportunities, and yet we feel shame. We feel this gap between where we are and where we want to go, and that's highlighted by the progression on everyone else's journeys that we're constantly seeing. And while I think that the inspiration economy is amazing and that we should take lessons from and learn from as many people as possible, we also need to define our own paths. Or as Rumi says, we have to unfold our own myth. And how do we do that in a world where it's so easy to see what everyone else is doing? How do we do that when we feel shame about where we are relative to other people? That's a tough question, but it's also what I want to cover in today's podcast. So let's talk about where the root of a lot of this comes from. Maybe in school, in sports, growing up, we were taught that the world was competitive. You were ranked in class, you were given grades, you were given scores. And while scoring is a very helpful mechanism to help you understand a little bit about how your progress is going, and of course, whether you've won a game or not, the truth is the game of life cannot be easily scored with a simple rubric. Not to mention, even if you're somebody who's scored high, maybe you've accelerated in school, maybe you've been rewarded by the scoring system, by grades, by the scores in games, you are always somebody who would accelerate. The problem is when you leave school, you realize that there's always somebody who has a higher score than you. There's always somebody who has a bigger bank account than you. No matter who you are, even if you're LeBron James, at some point some new basketball player will come along and overtake his record. So my question to you is, what if the lens of competition is no longer useful? What if that lens is no longer serving you? Hierarchy and the lens of competition assumes that we're all being graded on one dimension. And if you've been reading any of my work or listening to any of my videos, you'll know that a big part of my personal philosophy is about being multi-dimensional. When we become one-dimensional, we become stuck, we become constrained, and we get into that fight, that effort, that world of competition, when instead we're all multifaceted people, we're all multiple different interests and personalities and desires, no matter what it might feel like from the external. So what if that lens was no longer useful? What if hierarchy was only about one dimension of grading? Whereas the reality is there's really an infinite set of different ways that we can grade our own performance and our own success. If we think about the 5 regrets of the dying, many of those regrets are about shame of not fully embracing who we fully are while we're alive, and oftentimes that means going off the beaten path away from what is acceptable or what we think is acceptable from our communities. The point is there's many different dimensions that we can judge our life by, and most, if not all, of those dimensions are difficult to score. It's difficult to score love, happiness, fulfillment, purpose, meaning, how we serve others in the world. All of those are a bit more of a qualitative lens rather than the quantitative world of measurement that we're used to in hierarchies and in the lens that's looking at things only through simple scoring mechanisms. And not only that, but every single person on this planet is completely unique. You have your own set of experiences, your own set of challenges. And what I've discovered through a lot of my coaching work with different founders and entrepreneurs is it doesn't matter actually what scale you're working on, whether you're going from $0 to $1 million, $1 million to $10 million, $10 million to $100 million. The point is all of us are seeking progress of some kind. And many people were given a bit of a leg up in life. I feel like I was given up a good leg up in life in terms of my parents and my family and the support systems that I had. And so my own progress and sense of fulfillment is always about where I'm starting from, not necessarily where I'm going. And so what I've seen is if an entrepreneur makes their first $100 or first $1,000, they can feel ecstatic about that progress. That same person 5-10 years later, they're making their first $100,000 and it's the equivalent feeling, different scale, but same sense of progress. So not only are we all unique, but the destinations we arrive at on our unique path based on where we're coming from, those are also going to be unique. And what I've found is that the actual absolute number isn't as important as the feeling and sense of progress. The great thing about so many people being unique individuals is everybody around you, including yourself, gets to run your own unique experiment in life. I am thrilled that people are unique. I'm thrilled that people are pursuing whatever path that they're on. If you like poetry, if you like ballet, if you like opera, if you like steak, cooking steak on the grill, whatever your thing is, I'm so happy that everybody has a unique interest. I'm so happy that we all have individual passions. Think about how rich the world is because of how different and diverse different people's passions are. If somebody didn't grow up wanting to be a ballet dancer, we don't have the ballet. If somebody didn't grow up wanting to be a painter, we wouldn't have paintings across the history of time. If somebody didn't grow up loving sailing and being at sea, we wouldn't have advanced sailing boats and an understanding of how to navigate travel by ocean. So it's this individuality, it's this uniqueness, this diversity of different interests and perspectives that makes life interesting. So let's start by just being really happy and grateful for all of the unique, all of the diverse, all of the interesting paths that other people are choosing to take. Let's give them that permission because it makes our life more rich and interesting and diverse. The second aspect of seeing abundance here rather than seeing competition here is not only do other people create life's richness, their knowledge, what they communicate, how they serve the world benefits you as well. The people who built the roads that you drive on before you were even alive. The people who built the internet, who maintain the internet that we're using to communicate and listen to podcasts like this. We're benefiting so much from so many people around the world that I want to dispel this myth of competition and instead look at just how interconnected we are and how much we benefit from the hard work of other people, some of which have already passed on, some of which will still be born, some of which will only contribute knowledge or something for somebody else just to pick up one time, a single phrase, a single quote, a book, whatever it might be. We all benefit from, not from competition, but from diversity, not from hierarchy, but from sharing, not from scarcity, but from abundance. The third thing that I want to share when it comes to seeing the world, not as competition, but instead as something abundant, is to get present with your own progress. Get present with the journey that you're on. When you need to, instead of looking at what Ben Hardy calls the gap in the game, the gap is how far you still have to go, how far in the journey you feel like you still have to travel. Instead, look backwards at all of the steps that you've already taken. So if you're picturing yourself, maybe you're on this big hike, you could look way out in the distance and see the peak of the mountain that you're trying to reach and feel some sadness, feel some guilt, feel like, oh wow, I'm not even close to making it yet. Or you can look backwards and see all of the steps you've taken so far, all of the wins that you've had in your life so far. And in doing so, you can start to feel gratitude. You can start to feel like you actually have a lot of material to work with. You've done a lot in your life. So what I recommend you do, if you're feeling stuck in competition, if you're feeling shame about other people's progress, is to look back and list out what are 3 to 5 major achievements you've had in your life over the last 5 years, or the last 10 years. What are 5 to 10 big lessons you've learned in your life, maybe through hardship, through failure, through big mistakes that you've made. Those are hard earned, so take them with you as you travel. And last, what are 1 to 2 skills that you didn't have 2 years ago? By doing this exercise and looking back, by reflecting on all the steps of progress you've made today, instead of this big gap of where you want to go, you'll feel more ready for the present moment to continue that path of progress. And that's all this is about. Keep stacking wins, keep taking the next step, keep building on this big library of lessons you've learned, people you've helped, achievements you've unlocked for yourself. Doing that is going to help you feel grateful about all of the resources that you've had up until this point. The point is, ultimately, one of life's biggest traps is not being satisfied where we are today, not getting present to where we are today and fully embracing it, fully getting the nectar out of each and every moment. By getting caught at looking at everyone else's path, at looking how far someone else has gone, by missing your own journey, you lose present for the moment. And when you lose presence for the moment, what ends up happening is you start missing the lessons of the moment. You start missing the opportunities of the moment. By refocusing on what you can control, by re-engaging into the present moment, you're able to make the best of the materials that you have today. You're able to make the progress, no matter how big, no matter how small, that you can possibly make in this moment in your life right now. So that's it for today's podcast. I'm curious, how do you navigate this tension between seeing other people in the market and seeing their success versus seeing the inspiration they provide? How do you navigate the tension of having desire for where you want to go in your life, while also not feeling the shame of still having a long way to go and recognizing some of the wins that you've had? And last, what do you do to stay motivated? How do you stay motivated on your own progress despite others seemingly being ahead of you? I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to chat with you about this topic. If you have any questions or ideas, you can always reach out. I'll be back again very soon. Later.